Imagine you're at a passport control queue. Single file, one officer, one desk. The rules are strict. People must be processed in the order they arrived. The officer calls the next person forward. That person has a problem, a missing form, an expired document, something that takes time to sort out. So the officer waits. The person behind them waits. Every single person in that queue, regardless of how straightforward their own case might be, waits. People near the back have all their paperwork in perfect order. They could be through in 30 seconds. It doesn't matter. The queue doesn't move until the problem at the front is resolved. One person's delay becomes everyone's delay. The queue is frozen by its own rules. This is head-of-line blocking, and the same dynamic, with almost identical logic, plays out inside TCP connections millions of times a second, across every network on Earth. Here's how it happens. A sender is transmitting a continuous stream of data. The receiver is collecting packets as they arrive, holding them in a buffer, and handing them off in order to the application waiting above. That ordering guarantee is the point. The application receives a clean, sequenced stream regardless of what the network did in transit. Everything works. Then a packet goes missing. The receiver continues collecting what arrives. Packets after the gap keep coming, some ahead of schedule, some roughly on time. The receiver holds them in its buffer, but it cannot hand anything forward, not a single byte beyond the gap. The application is waiting. The buffer is filling. The data is there, physically present, already received, and completely inaccessible, because it sits on the wrong side of a hole in the sequence. The receiver is not broken. It's working exactly as designed. The ordering guarantee doesn't say, deliver what you have and fill in the gaps later. It says, deliver in order, always, without exception. To deliver anything beyond the gap would be to hand the application data that arrives before the data that precedes it, which would violate the guarantee entirely. So the buffer holds, the application waits, the queue is frozen. Meanwhile, the repair cycle begins. The gap is detected, the retransmission is requested, the missing data makes the round trip across the network. And during all of that time, which might be a handful of milliseconds for a nearby server, or 200 milliseconds for a distant one, nothing moves. The buffer sits full of correctly received data that cannot be released, and the application experiences it as a stall. For some applications, this is completely acceptable. A file download doesn't care about the stall. The file will be assembled correctly when everything arrives, and whether it took 3 seconds or 3.2 seconds is irrelevant. A database query that depends on complete and correctly ordered results would rather wait than receive something garbled. For these cases, head-of-line blocking is not a problem. It's the correct behavior. The cost of the stall is smaller than the cost of receiving data out of order. But now think about a video call. A video call is not sending a file. It's sending a continuous stream of audio and video frames, each one representing a slice of right now. Frame 57 shows your face at this exact moment. Frame 58 will show it a fraction of a second later. The application, the video codec, doesn't need perfect completeness. It needs recency. A frame that arrives late enough is worse than useless. It's a frame from the past, about a moment that has already gone. The right response to a missing frame is usually not to wait for it. It's to skip it, play what you have, and keep moving forward. But TCP doesn't allow this. TCP cannot hand the application frame 58 until it has delivered frame 57, even if 57 is lost and being retransmitted and will arrive 200 milliseconds late. The frames after the gap are held. The application has nothing to display. The call freezes. This is the cost of ordering as a strict guarantee. When the application needs order, the guarantee is worth every millisecond of the stall. When the application doesn't need strict order, when recency matters more than completeness, the guarantee becomes a liability. You're paying for a property you don't want, and the payment comes in exactly the currency you can least afford to spend: time. The engineering response to this insight is to not use TCP for those applications. UDP, the other major transport protocol, provides no ordering guarantee. It sends packets and makes no promises about the sequence in which they arrive. There's no buffer holding data behind a gap, no queue frozen at the front. Each packet is handed to the application as it arrives, in whatever order that happens to be. A missing packet is simply absent. The application receives what it gets and decides what to do with it. For a video call, this is almost always the better choice. A missing audio packet means a tiny glitch, a few milliseconds of silence, or a slightly garbled sound. The call continues, the conversation continues. A missed frame means a very brief visual artifact, acceptable. Compare that to the alternative, a frozen call, lasting the full round-trip time of the retransmission every time a single packet is lost. The glitch is better than the freeze. So real-time applications, video calls, live streams, online games, are typically built on UDP, with their own application-level logic for handling gaps. Not the TCP logic of hold everything and wait, their own logic. Skip it, interpolate, continue, because falling behind is more damaging than losing a piece. Return to the passport queue. The strict ordering rule, process people in the order they arrived, makes perfect sense in many contexts. It's fair, it prevents jump cutting, it ensures nothing gets skipped. But if you're running an emergency room rather than a passport office, the same rule becomes catastrophic. Treating patients in arrival order, regardless of urgency, would be the wrong policy. The right policy is triage. Assess what's in front of you, prioritize by need, accept that strict order is sometimes the wrong optimization. TCP and UDP are, in a simplified sense, those two policies applied to data. TCP is the passport queue, strict, orderly, complete. UDP is the triage room, flexible, immediate, willing to skip something to keep moving. Neither is wrong. They are correct for different situations. What you can see now is that ordering is not a property you simply turn on or off. It's a commitment with consequences. The moment you guarantee that a receiver will always see data in sequence, you've also committed to freezing the stream every time a gap appears. The two are inseparable. The guarantee and the stall are the same thing, viewed from different angles. Applications that need order pay that cost willingly. Applications that don't have learned, sometimes painfully, to work around it. The engineering of the modern internet, including some of its most significant recent advances, is in large part the story of finding better ways to navigate that trade-off.